Introduction. Friends, if you're excited to watch the thrilling new movie Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025, in English, then make sure to hit that like button on this video. And if you're visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on awesome movie updates. In today's video, we are diving into Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025. We'll talk about what this movie is all about, where you can watch it and all the fascinating details behind it. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know on which OTT platform or satellite channel you can catch this movie. Plus, we'll cover the technical side, the music, the pre-production journey, filming, post-production, the budget, and the box office performance. But that's not all. We'll also go into the storyline, some interesting facts, the full star cast, how the actors performed, and which characters they brought to life on screen. And of course, I'll give you a short review of the story as well. So stick around till the end of this video, friends, because you won't want to miss a single detail. Alright, let's jump right in. Alright, friends, let's dive deep into the thrilling, bloody, and sometimes wickedly funny world of Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025. The movie kicks off in classic Fear Street fashion with a bang. We open at Shadyside High, where the halls are buzzing with prom fever. The school is alive with glitter, drama, and teenage dreams, but underneath all the sparkle lurks something dark, sinister, and hungry. That's right, someone or something has a deadly plan for prom night. At first, the story feels like your typical high school drama. You've got your prom queen contenders, the popular girl, the underdog, the mysterious newcomer, and, of course, the mean girl everyone loves to hate. But just when you think you know where it's going, the Fear Street magic kicks in. Suddenly, we're dealing with anonymous threats, mysterious accidents, and gruesome deaths that start picking off the prom court one by one. Yep, this prom queen race isn't just about votes, it's about survival. The narrative doesn't just follow a straight line. Oh no, it plays with perspective like a cat with a mouse. We jump between different characters' points of view. The anxious best friend who knows too much, the detective piecing together clues, the outcast trying to warn everyone, and even the killer's chilling perspective at times. This shift keeps you constantly guessing and creates an addictive tension that pulls you deeper into the chaos. And here's where things get really interesting. The film weaves in the legendary Fear Street curse. Flashbacks, diary entries, and whispered town secrets remind us that this isn't just a high school thriller. It's part of something much bigger and much older. The timeline slips between past and present, connecting events from Shadyside's bloody history to the madness unfolding at the prom. One of the key turning points hits when the main character, let's call her Rachel, the girl next door type, uncovers that the attacks aren't random. The killer has a pattern, a purpose, and it's tied to a decades-old tragedy no one wants to remember. From that moment, the tension cranks up. Friends turn on each other, alliances shift, and trust becomes a dangerous game. There's a brilliant scene about midway through where the entire prom court is locked in the gym. The lights flicker, phones go dead, and the suspense is pure gold. This isn't just about who will be crowned queen. It's about who will make it out alive. And let me tell you, the twists keep coming. Just when you think you've figured out the killer, the movie flips the script, keeping you on edge right up to the final act. Thematically, Fear Street, Prom Queen digs into some juicy stuff. Obsession with popularity, the pressure to fit in, the dark side of ambition, and of course, the idea that the past never really stays buried. It's all wrapped in sharp dialogue, wicked humor, and moments of genuine heartbreak that hit when you least expect it. By the time we reach the final showdown, the emotional stakes are sky high. Characters you were rooting for may not make it, and the ones you doubted might just surprise you. It's messy, wild, and packed with tension. Everything you want from a Fear Street movie. So, if you're ready for a bloody prom night where nothing is as it seems, Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025 delivers one unforgettable ride. Keep those lights on, friends. Alright, friends, let's crack open the world of Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025, and talk about the delicious chaos that is its character development, because this movie isn't just a slasher flick. It's packed with characters who are messy, layered, and sometimes surprisingly human. First up, we've got Rachel, the so-called girl next door, but don't let that label fool you. Rachel is no bland final girl. She starts off as the underdog on the prom court, the one no one really expects to win, or even survive, frankly. But as the story unfolds, Rachel transforms. We watch her go from a shy, unsure teen just trying to make it to graduation, to someone who's forced to outsmart a killer, confront her own fears, and dig up some very ugly town secrets. She's got this resilience that sneaks up on you. One minute she's the quiet observer, and the next she's out there piecing together clues, calling people out, and basically turning into Shadyside's own junior detective. Now, what's a prom without the mean girl? Enter Trina, the reigning queen bee. Flawless makeup, perfect hair, and a heart made of, well, let's just say not gold. At first glance, you're ready to roll your eyes at her. But here's where the movie plays with expectations. Trina isn't just a shallow stereotype. As things spiral into chaos, you see cracks in her polished armor. Fear, jealousy, guilt. It all bubbles to the surface. She's fighting for that crown, sure, but she's also fighting to hold onto her identity, and by the end, you may just find yourself weirdly rooting for her survival. Derek, the golden boy boyfriend, brings another layer. At first, he's the typical prom king candidate. Charming, popular, maybe a little too slick for his own good. But as secrets start unraveling, Derek's picture-perfect world takes some major hits. What's fascinating is watching how his loyalty gets tested. Is he protecting his friends or protecting himself? His arc is a slippery slope of trust and betrayal, and it keeps the audience guessing. We also can't forget Mia, the quirky best friend with a sharp tongue and a heart of gold. She's the voice of reason, the one throwing out one-liners even as things go downhill fast. But Mia isn't just comic relief. She's the emotional glue in the friend group, and when the stakes rise, her loyalty is fierce. Watching Mia shift from snarky sidekick to someone willing to risk everything is one of the movie's most rewarding transformations. And here's the kicker. The killer isn't just some faceless figure lurking in the shadows. Nope. The movie gives us chilling glimpses into their perspective. Their motivations are twisted but grounded in real hurt, revenge, and a desire to upend the very system that put the prom court on a pedestal. This adds a fascinating dimension, blurring the lines between villain and victim. The relationships in this movie, they're a hot mess in the best way. Friendships fracture under pressure. Old flames reignite in moments of panic, and alliances shift like sand. Characters are forced to confront not just the killer, but their own worst instincts, jealousy, selfishness, fear. And those small, quiet moments, like Rachel and Mia's heart-to-heart, or Trina showing rare vulnerability, are what give the film its surprising emotional punch. So yeah, Fear Street. Prom Queen doesn't just give us screaming teens running through dark hallways. It gives us characters who break, change, clash, and sometimes redeem themselves. By the end, you're left marveling not just at the body count, but at how much these characters have been put through the emotional ringer and who they've become because of it. All right, friends, let's get into one of the juiciest parts of Fear Street. Prom Queen 2025, the performances. Because let me tell you, this cast does not phone it in. They bring the screams, the sass, the heartbreak, and even a few laughs, all wrapped in one blood-soaked prom night. First, let's talk about our leading lady, Rachel, played by an actress who is definitely heading for big things after this. She's the emotional anchor of the movie, and wow, does she deliver. Rachel's transformation from quiet underdog to fierce survivor isn't just written into the script. You feel it in every expression, every panicked breath, every moment of raw determination. The way she shifts from wide-eyed shock to sharp, take-charge energy pulls you right into her world. One moment, she's trembling as she uncovers a dark secret. The next, she's standing her ground in a showdown you'll want to cheer for. It's not just survival. It's a full-on character awakening, and the actress nails every beat. Then we have Trina, our queen bee, and oh boy, the actress playing her is having the time of her life. She gives us the perfect mix of charm, venom, and vulnerability. At first, you're sure you're watching a cardboard cutout of every high school diva you've ever seen, but then come the layers. The little flickers of insecurity, the flashes of guilt, the desperation under the surface, all delivered with such sharp timing that Trina becomes way more than just the girl you love to hate. There's one scene where she drops the snark and you catch a glimpse of real fear, and it hits surprisingly hard. She's a scene stealer, no doubt. Derek, the golden boy prom king, brings his A-game too. He walks that tightrope between charming and shady like a pro. You're constantly second-guessing his motives, thanks to the actor's sly little glances, the hesitation in his voice, the subtle shift from hero to maybe suspect. It's fun to watch because you're never quite sure where he stands, and that's exactly the tension this character needs. Mia, the best friend and comic relief, is pure gold. She nails the timing, throwing out sharp one-liners just when the tension threatens to snap, but she's no shallow sidekick. The actress brings real heart to Mia, especially in the quieter moments. There's this raw, emotional honesty when she's comforting Rachel or rallying the group, and it adds depth that makes you genuinely care about her survival. And when things get messy, she steps up like a champ, turning what could have been just a punchline character into one of the most lovable figures in the movie. And then, oh yes, the killer. Without giving away spoilers, let's just say the actor behind the mask knows exactly how to balance menace and mystery. It's not just about stalking the halls with a weapon. It's about the chilling stillness, the voice that sends shivers down your spine, the sudden bursts of rage that feel uncomfortably human. Even when you don't know who the killer is, the presence is unforgettable, and that's a credit to the performance behind the mask. Even the supporting cast deserves a shout-out. The teachers, the detective, the parents, they all bring a grounded, believable energy that keeps the world feeling real, even when things go full horror movie bonkers. It's the little touches, a worried glance, a trembling voice on the phone, that make the stakes hit harder. What makes the performances stand out is that everyone, from the leads to the background players, seems fully locked in. They don't treat this like just another teen slasher. They dive in with commitment, bringing real emotional weight to the fear, the heartbreak, the friendships, and yes, even the betrayals. It's the kind of cast that makes you feel every twist, every scare, and every shocking reveal right alongside them. And that's what makes this ride so wildly entertaining. All right, friends, buckle up, because we're about to talk about the real mastermind behind the madness of Fear Street. Prom Queen, 2025, the director. And trust me, their fingerprints are all over this movie, shaping everything from the tension in the air to the way your heart jumps with every unexpected twist. First off, let's talk about tone and mood, because the director absolutely nails that tricky balance between teen drama, slasher horror, and dark humor. 1 second you're laughing at a snarky hallway exchange between characters, and the next, bam. The lights flicker, the music drops, and the mood shifts into full-on terror. That back and forth is where the fun lives, and the director knows exactly how to play with it. There's a rhythm here that keeps you on edge. Just when you think you can relax, something creepy slithers in. Maybe a shadow slipping through the gym, maybe a chilling message scrawled on a mirror, and suddenly you're gripping the edge of your seat again. Now, the stylistic choices. Oh, they're a feast for the eyes. The director leans hard into bold colors and striking contrasts. Glittering prom gowns against bloodstained floors, neon lights flickering over terrified faces, slow-motion confetti falling as chaos explodes around it. There are gorgeous wide shots of the school that turn an ordinary high school into a labyrinth of fear. And then there are tight, claustrophobic close-ups that make you feel every breath, every heartbeat, every panicked glance. It's stylish, sharp, and it makes the horror not just something you watch, but something you feel. And let's talk pacing, because that's where the director's control really shows. This isn't one of those horror films that drags its feet or blows all its scares in the first act. Nope. Here, the director carefully cranks the tension, layering little mysteries on top of each other, giving you just enough time to breathe before dropping you back into the fire. The buildup is deliciously slow at first. We meet the characters, we soak in the high school drama, but when things take off, they take off. The second half of the film is a masterclass in momentum, with twist after twist dropping like dominoes, all without feeling rushed or chaotic. You're swept along in a wild ride where the stakes keep rising and the surprises just keep coming. When it comes to shot composition, the director is clearly having a blast. There are clever mirror shots that make you question who's watching who, over-the-shoulder glimpses that reveal danger just out of the character's line of sight, and stylish overhead shots that make even the dance floor feel like a trap. One particularly brilliant sequence traps the prom court inside the gym, and the way the camera darts between panicked faces, smashed decorations, and creeping shadows turns it into a full-blown visual panic attack in the best way possible. What's really impressive, though, is the director's narrative vision. This isn't just about stacking up scares or body count, it's about making you care. The director gives space for the emotional beats to land, the quiet confession between friends, the unexpected vulnerability of the mean girl, the split-second decisions that reveal true character. All of it makes the horror hit harder because you're not just watching characters survive, you're watching them unravel, evolve, and fight to hold onto who they are. And let's not forget the callbacks to the larger Fear Street universe. The director weaves in little nods and Easter eggs to past curses, legends, and survivors, giving fans plenty of reasons to cheer or scream. It's a love letter to the series, but it's also fresh, sharp, and full of personality. In short, the director doesn't just guide this movie, they own it, shaping a pulse-pounding, glitter and blood-soaked ride that's as stylish as it is emotionally satisfying. You can feel the vision in every frame, every scream, every perfectly timed twist, and that's what makes this movie such a blast to watch. All right, friends, let's turn the spotlight on one of the unsung heroes of Fear Street. Prom Queen, 2025, the cinematography. Because let's be real, without those killer shots, moody lighting, and genius framing, this movie wouldn't hit nearly as hard. The cinematographer is the magician behind the curtain here, casting the visual spells that make every scream, every whisper, and every glittering prom moment unforgettable. Let's start with the camera angles because wow, they are anything but ordinary. We get these dizzying overhead shots that sweep across the prom dance floor, making it feel like both a fairy tale and a nightmare at the same time. 1 second, you're floating over a sea of sparkling gowns and flashing lights, and the next, the camera dives in, weaving through the panicked crowd as chaos erupts. When the killer's lurking, the angles get sneaky, peeking through cracked doors, hovering just behind a character's shoulder, or tilting ever so slightly to create that unsettling feeling that something is off. It's like the camera itself is another character, always one step ahead, teasing us with glimpses of danger. And oh, the lighting, this movie serves it up in spades. We're talking rich, saturated colors that pop off the screen, deep reds that bleed into the shadows, cold blues that wash over empty hallways, and the harsh, flickering glow of malfunctioning gym lights during the prom night massacre. There's a visual poetry to the way light and dark clash in this film. Take the scenes in the school's underground tunnels, just a flicker of flashlight beams cutting through suffocating darkness, with the occasional glint of a sequin prom dress catching the light like a warning signal. The lighting doesn't just set the mood, it heightens it, cranking up the tension or beauty exactly when the scene demands. When it comes to framing, the cinematographer is playing a wickedly clever game. There's a constant push and pull between open, wide shots and tight, claustrophobic close-ups. In the calm before the storm moments, you'll see characters framed in doorways or reflected in mirrors, hinting at how trapped they really are, even when they don't know it yet. But when things go south, the frames close in fast, we get jittery handheld shots, extreme close-ups on terrified eyes, trembling hands, and blood-smeared tiaras. It's a masterclass in making you feel the walls closing in without a single word of dialogue. There are some visually striking moments that are pure cinematic gold. Picture this. The moment the prom queen is crowned, confetti rains down, the crowd cheers, the camera glides in a slow, sweeping arc, and then, snap, the tone flips. The lights cut out, the cheers morph into screams, and the camera whips into handheld chaos, pulling you right into the heart of the panic. Or another standout, the killer reflected in a shattered mirror, multiple fragments showing distorted angles of the mask. It's not just stylish, it's a visual gut punch. The atmosphere this cinematography creates is thick enough to cut with a knife. There's tension humming through every shadow-drenched hallway, every lonely locker-lined corridor, Every shot of a character standing under the buzzing prom lights, looking beautifully out of place and just a little doomed. But it's not all gloom and doom. There's genuine beauty here, too. The movie knows when to pause and let the visuals breathe. Whether it's a tender moment between friends under the glow of string lights or a haunting sunrise over Shadyside High after the night's carnage has ended. In short, the cinematography in Fear Street, Prom Queen doesn't just show the story. It amplifies it, wrapping every moment in mood, tension, and style. It's the reason why even when you close your eyes after the credits roll, you'll still see flashes of glitter, blood, and shadows dancing in your mind. And that, my friends, is movie magic. All right, friends, now we're diving into the heartbeat of Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025, the editing and pacing. You can have killer performances, stylish shots, and a spooky setting, but without sharp editing, the whole thing falls apart. Thankfully, this movie's editor knows exactly how to keep the adrenaline pumping and the tension simmering. So let's break it down. From the opening scene, the film sets its rhythm like a DJ spinning two tracks, part teen drama, part horror show, and the editing slices them together with precision. We jump from glittering prom preparations and sharp-tongued gossip to eerie flashes of something much darker lurking under the surface. But here's the magic. These jumps never feel jarring. Instead, the editing stitches the tones together seamlessly, making the audience feel that delicious sense of dread even when nothing bad has technically happened yet. The pacing? Oh, it's a ride. The first act gives us just the right amount of breathing room. We get to meet the characters, soak up the high school drama, and watch the social tension build like a volcano. But instead of dragging its feet, the film keeps teasing us with little moments. A locker door that slams shut just a bit too hard, a creepy message scribbled in a yearbook, a shadow slipping through the frame. All of it cut in quick, sharp beats that keep you on edge. When things explode into chaos, the editing kicks into high gear. We get these brilliant montage sequences, like when the prom turns into a full-on nightmare, where the cuts come rapid fire. Screaming faces, shattered decorations, the killer slipping through the crowd, all spliced together so tightly it feels like the film itself is spiraling into panic. But even in the middle of that chaos, the editor knows when to slow down. There are these small, almost poetic pauses. Rachel catching her breath in a bathroom, a flickering hallway light casting long shadows, a terrified glance exchange between friends. These pauses hit hard because they give your heart just enough time to catch up before plunging you back into the madness. One thing the editing nails is the emotional beats. There's a beautiful rhythm to how it balances action with character moments. You're never stuck in endless chase scenes or dragged through too much backstory. Instead, the editor slices in just the right flash of vulnerability or connection, a whispered confession, a trembling hand, a split-second decision, right when you need it. It's what makes the characters feel alive, and the stakes feel real. Even the transitions are fun to watch. Instead of basic cuts, the film plays with crossfades, smash cuts, and whip pans that match the chaotic energy of a teen slasher. One standout is a sequence where Rachel's horrified realization in the gym slams straight into a memory flashback, and the cut is so fast and visceral that it feels like you've been yanked into her mind. These clever edits don't just move the plot forward. They pull you deeper into the emotional core of the characters. And let's talk about the build-up to reveals, masterfully done. The film doesn't blow its secrets all at once. The editing carefully doles out clues, cutting between storylines just when you're about to get comfortable. You're constantly kept guessing, scanning the frame for that tiny detail the editor wants you to notice or miss. That's part of the fun. The film plays a game of cat and mouse not just with its characters, but with its audience. In short, the editing in Fear Street, Prom Queen works like a perfectly timed pulse. It pulls you in, ramps you up, slows you down just enough to breathe, then kicks you right back into high-stakes chaos. The rhythm it creates is what makes the movie not just a collection of scary scenes, but a roller coaster you feel in your bones from the first beat to the last brutal reveal. All right, friends, let's crank up the volume and dive into one of the juiciest layers of Fear Street. Prom Queen 2025. The soundtrack and score. Because make no mistake, the music here doesn't just sit politely in the background. It struts onto the dance floor, grabs you by the collar, and drags you straight into the chaos. First off, the soundtrack is pure gold. Picture this: a prom night pulsing with a mix of nostalgic 90s bangers, edgy indie rock, and heart-thudding synth beats that capture every ounce of teen angst and adrenaline. One minute you've got shimmering pop anthems setting the stage for slow dances and glittering tiaras, and the next, a gritty bass line kicks in as the camera follows the killers slipping through the crowd. It's that contrast between sweet and savage that makes the music feel so electric. You'll be humming along one moment, then gripping the armrest the next, thanks to the way the soundtrack flips on a dime. Now, let's talk about the score, which is an absolute weapon in this movie's arsenal. The composer here knows how to twist the knife in all the right places. There's this recurring motif, a whispery, almost lullaby-like melody that threads through the film, and every time it creeps in, you know something's about to go horribly wrong. It might start faint, barely audible over the hum of a classroom or the thump of prom music, but then it builds, curling around the edges of the scene until it's practically vibrating under your skin. It's the perfect sonic breadcrumb trail that ties the movie's biggest shocks together. And let's not skip over the expert use of silence, because oh yes, this movie knows when to shut up, and that's when it's the loudest. There's a brilliant scene where the score drops out entirely, and you're left with nothing but the ragged breathing of a character hiding in the dark, the creak of a locker door, the faint shuffle of footsteps down the hall. That silence is a tension grenade just waiting to go off. It's like the music is holding its breath right alongside the audience, and when the sound finally crashes back in with a scream, a stab, or a chase, it hits like a sucker punch. One of the standout moments? The prom massacre sequence. Here, the score and soundtrack weave together in a glorious, chaotic dance. The DJ's prom playlist blares in the background, but beneath it, the score slithers in, sharp violin scrapes, low-end rumbles, jittery electronic pulses, twisting a celebration into a nightmare. As the scene spirals, the pop music warps and distorts, almost as if the soundtrack itself is panicking right along with the characters. It's a sonic meltdown that leaves you breathless. Even in the film's quieter beats, the music works over time. Emotional scenes between friends are underscored with delicate piano and soft strings, just enough to tug at the heart without drowning out the dialogue. The score doesn't scream for attention. It amplifies the moment, shaping the atmosphere and slipping seamlessly into the story's veins. And when it comes to the final confrontation, the score goes all out, swelling strings, pounding percussion, and this rising, heartbeat-like rhythm that makes you feel every second ticking down toward the climax. It's the kind of music that doesn't just accompany the action. It drives it, wrapping you up in a wave of tension and release that keeps you hanging on to every frame. In short, the soundtrack and score of Fear Street, Prom Queen aren't just window dressing. They're a pulse, a scream, and sometimes a whisper, all rolled into one. Whether it's a killer remix of prom night classics or a chilling motif that crawls under your skin, the music here shapes the entire experience, making sure you don't just watch the movie, you feel it in your bones. All right, friends, now we're pulling back the glittery curtain and stepping past the blood-splattered dance floor to get into the real heart of Fear Street. Prom Queen, 2025, the themes and messages. Because yes, this movie is packed with slasher thrills and prom night mayhem, but underneath the chaos, it's also wrestling with some juicy, thought-provoking ideas that stick with you long after the credits roll. First up, let's talk about the big one: popularity and the price of perfection. On the surface, this is your classic prom story. The cool kids, the outsiders, the desperate scramble for the crown. But the film uses that glittering setup to rip open the ugly truth hiding underneath. It's not just about who's got the best dress or the most votes. It's about the desperate need to be seen, to matter, to feel like you belong, even if it means wearing a mask, sometimes literally, sometimes emotionally. The characters are constantly navigating this minefield of expectations from friends, parents, the school, and the movie asks, what happens when the masks crack? What's left when the image shatters? Then there's revenge and guilt, threaded through the whole narrative like a dark undercurrent. This isn't just a mindless slasher where random teens get picked off. Nope. The attacks are loaded with history, resentment, and buried secrets. The film digs into how past wrongs ripple into the present, how guilt festers, and how revenge doesn't always deliver the satisfaction people crave. Characters who seem confident at first are slowly unraveled as their past actions, or failures to act, come back to haunt them. It's juicy, it's messy, and it adds real weight to every twist and betrayal. Another standout theme is identity and transformation. High school is already a breeding ground for shifting identities, but throw in a masked killer, and suddenly those transformations turn literal. Characters are forced to confront who they really are when the pressure's on. The bully shows vulnerability, the outsider steps into the role of a leader, and the perfect prom queen reveals cracks in her flawless facade. The movie plays with the idea that under threat, people don't change, they reveal themselves. And let's not skip over the sharp commentary on social dynamics and power. This film has its eye on the hierarchy of high school life, the cliques, the competition, the way people cling to power even in the face of danger. You see it in the way the popular kids scramble to maintain control, in the adults who dismiss real fears, in the outsiders who finally push back. It's not just teenagers running from a killer, it's a brutal examination of how power is hoarded, how it warps relationships, and how easily it collapses when the playing field turns bloody. But here's where it gets really fun. The movie also leans into generational trauma and the curse of Shadyside. For fans of the Fear Street universe, this theme hits hard. The idea that violence, injustice, and pain keep cycling through generations, pulling in new victims, is woven beautifully into the Prom Queen plot. It's not just this year's seniors caught in the storm. It's a legacy of fear, shame, and unfinished business echoing through time. That larger, almost mythic layer gives the movie extra punch and makes the personal struggles of the characters feel tied to something much bigger. And let's not forget friendship, loyalty, and betrayal, the emotional backbone of the film. When survival is on the line, the real test isn't just outrunning the killer, it's figuring out who's got your back. The movie plays with trust in clever ways. Longtime friends crumble under pressure, unexpected alliances form, and the meaning of loyalty is pushed to the edge. There are some genuinely heartbreaking moments where characters have to decide between saving themselves or standing by the people they love, and those moments give the movie its emotional bite. What makes all these themes really click is that they never feel tacked on or preachy. They're baked into the characters, the setting, and the unfolding mystery. Every prom queen sash, every whispered secret, every panic choice ties back to these deeper ideas, and that's what makes Fear Street, Prom Queen, more than just a stylish slasher. It's a wild, bloody, emotional ride through all the things that make being a teenager both exhilarating and absolutely terrifying. All right, friends, it's time to sink our teeth into one of the flashiest, bloodiest, and most jaw-dropping parts of Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025, the visual effects and CGI. And let me tell you, this film doesn't just dabble in effects, it drenches itself in them, using both digital magic and old-school practical tricks to turn prom night into an unforgettable, gory spectacle. Let's start with the practical effects, because they are the unsung heroes here. The blood? Oh, it's gloriously real. We're talking thick, sticky splatters that hit the floor, the walls, the glittering prom dresses. When the killer strikes, you feel it, thanks to the commitment to practical gore. Slashed fabric, shattered mirrors, makeup smears mixed with tears, and yes, blood that doesn't politely fade into CGI mist. It gives the violence a gritty, visceral edge that's straight out of classic slasher playbooks, and it works like a charm. But don't think this movie is stuck in the past, because the CGI work swoops in to dial up the madness in all the right ways. We're talking supernatural flourishes that shimmer just under the surface, flickering lights that pulse unnaturally, ghostly figures dissolving into shadows, and some truly spine-chilling mirror effects where you're not sure if you're looking at a reflection or something crawling out from the other side. One particularly unforgettable sequence features a blood-soaked prom floor that literally warps and cracks open beneath the character's feet. A moment where practical destruction meets seamless digital enhancement, and the result is pure nightmare fuel. What's brilliant here is that the CGI never takes over just to show off. It's always in service of the mood, the tension, and the supernatural thread running through the Fear Street universe. Whether it's a subtle flicker in a character's eyes or a full-on prom night disaster, the digital effects blend so smoothly into the world that you almost forget you're watching something enhanced until it hits you in the gut. A perfect example? The killer's reveal scene. There's this masterful combo of practical costume design. The mask, the weapon, the unnerving physicality, paired with just the right touch of CGI. Maybe the eyes glow ever so faintly, or there's a shiver in the air when they pass. It never feels cartoonish or overblown. It feels like reality bending just a little too far, enough to send a chill straight down your spine. Another highlight is the way environmental effects are handled. Storms roll in with digital clouds that feel heavy and oppressive. Flickering lightning bathes the school in sharp, moody flashes, and when the chaos really erupts, shattered glass and debris whirl through the air in a mix of practical breakage and digital enhancement that sells the scale of the disaster without pulling you out of the moment. What's really fun is how the film balances practical scares with digital punch-ups. For every big, supernatural set piece, there's a grounded, in-your-face moment, a door slammed shut, a figure darting past just out of frame, a hand clamped over someone's mouth in the dark. The visual effects crew knows that sometimes the scariest thing isn't the monster in full CGI glory. It's the suggestion of the monster, the flicker at the edge of the shot, the quick, bloody aftermath you're left to imagine. In short, the visual effects in Fear Street, Prom Queen work like a perfectly mixed cocktail of old-school horror craftsmanship and sleek modern magic. The practical effects ground the horror, making it raw and tactile, while the CGI adds an eerie, otherworldly shimmer that makes this prom night one for the history books. Whether you're here for the gore, the ghostly chills, or just to marvel at how a glitter bomb and a bloodbath can coexist in the same frame, the effects team delivers the goods, and then some. Now let's step into the world of Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025, and we're not just talking about the blood-soaked gymnasium or the terrifying hallways where our characters are running for their lives. No. We're talking about the entire visual world that the production design brings to life, setting the stage for all the thrills, chills, and dark drama to unfold. First things first, the locations are spot on. From the moment you lay eyes on the school, you know something's off. The prom, the ultimate symbol of teenage dreams and awkward perfection, is set in this grand but eerily decaying high school gym, its glittering decorations clashing with the grime of a place that's seen too many years of neglect. It's the kind of space that holds 100 whispered secrets in its walls, where the echoes of past horrors can almost be heard between the strains of "I Will Survive" blaring on the speaker system. There's a beauty in its decay, and it gives the whole night a sinister edge, a perfect reflection of how the kids here are caught in a web of aspiration and fear. The place is alive in a way, buzzing with tension and dark history. Then we've got the streets of Shadyside. It's more than just a backdrop. It's the town with a reputation where every corner feels haunted, where the houses have too many stories and the sidewalks carry a sense of foreboding. Every street lamp flickers like it's trying to escape the shadows of the past, and the alleys are a place where you wouldn't want to stumble, even on the safest of nights. The design of Shadyside adds depth to the film, building a sense of doom that never lets up. Even the outside of the school, from the cracked pavement to the overgrown hedges, carries that feeling of something lurking just out of sight, ready to strike. The prom night decorations themselves are key to setting the tone. On the surface, they're what you'd expect: streamers, lights, fake smiles. But as the night goes on, those innocent little touches become warped by fear. The bright, glossy banners and balloons start to feel suffocating, a glossy mask for the chaos bubbling underneath. It's the perfect metaphor. The prom's sparkly surface is cracked by the terror bubbling beneath, like a cheap glitter mask hiding a horrible secret. When it comes to props, it's not just the costume designs or killer weapons that catch your eye, though we've got to admit. There are some killer props, pun intended. It's the smaller details, the weathered lockers where characters find their fates, the shattered glass, the broken prom crowns, and of course, the odd little trinkets, a forgotten bracelet, a torn page from a yearbook, all adding an extra layer of realism and foreboding to the world. These items don't just exist for the sake of aesthetics. They're breadcrumbs that tie us deeper into the mystery. Every corner of this set feels like it's hiding something. Every flickering light or cracked mirror is a subtle nod to the layers of secrets buried within the characters and the town itself. The lighting plays a huge role in amplifying these set pieces. In the gym, you get this almost nightmarish contrast between the harsh, flickering lights that buzz above and the soft glow of the neon decorations. As the night turns darker and more chaotic, the light warps. Shadows stretch longer, and what was once a brightly colored banner becomes a looming figure in the corner of your vision. The lighting doesn't just illuminate, it distorts, creates unease, and adds to the feeling that everything is spiraling into madness. And then there's the Prom Queen stage, where everything reaches its horrifying peak. It's not just a backdrop, it's the place where the characters' fates are sealed. The design here is a mix of vintage and modern. Think garish golden statues, tacky velvet curtains, and the kind of pomp that makes you cringe with its artificiality. But when the horror hits, it transforms. The once celebratory space becomes a blood-soaked mess, and all the glossy, glittering materials turn into something much darker, mirroring the corruption and violence that have been brewing all night. Through every prop, every location, and every set piece, Fear Street, Prom Queen builds a world that is just as important to the story as its characters. The film doesn't just use its setting as a pretty backdrop. It makes the locations feel like characters in their own right, with histories, secrets, and a weight that presses down on everyone. Whether it's the crumbling school, the haunted streets, or the suffocating prom hall, the sets contribute layers of tension and unease that build the atmosphere and make every bloody turn feel like it was meant to happen there. It's not just where they are, it's why they are there and how every corner of their world seems to be conspiring against them. All right, let's talk about the dialogue and script of Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025. Because, folks, this isn't just a slasher where characters scream at each other for no reason. The script here knows exactly when to be snarky, when to pull at your heartstrings, and when to drop the hammer with a line that cuts deep. It's got that perfect blend of sharp wit and emotional weight, and it all comes together to elevate the film beyond the typical teen horror flick. First off, the dialogue feels alive. There's none of that stilted, fake banter that you sometimes get in movies where the characters are supposed to sound relatable. But instead, it's clear no one in the writer's room ever actually spoke to a teenager. No, here the characters feel like they're having real conversations. They joke around, throw insults, and actually talk about things that matter to them. You can practically hear the buzzing tension in the room during those casual moments when everyone's still pretending everything's normal. It's smart, it's sharp, and it gives the characters depth before they even need to start running for their lives. But don't be fooled into thinking it's all fun and games. The script knows how to hit you with some emotional weight when it counts. In those quieter moments when the chaos of prom night isn't quite so close, the dialogue takes a turn for the vulnerable. Characters open up about their fears, their regrets, their desire for something more than just this night. It's in these moments that the film really digs into what being a teenager is all about, feeling invisible, wanting to be seen, but also afraid of what that means. Those conversations aren't just filler, they ground the horror in something real, making the stakes feel higher. And when the terror begins, those heartfelt moments hit even harder. But let's not forget about the one-liners and those moments of pure wit. This movie is packed with them. Whether it's a sarcastic remark tossed out just before a chase scene or a biting retort that cuts through the tension, the dialogue serves up moments that'll make you smile, even while you're clutching the armrest. The characters are quick with their words, throwing out clever quips that feel like a defense mechanism against the horror around them. These zingers don't just make you laugh. They reveal the characters' personalities, smart, snarky, tough, but also vulnerable in ways that make you root for them when the blood starts spilling. Then there's the impactful writing in the more dramatic moments. You can feel the weight of the script when it's time to reveal a character's hidden trauma, regret, or the awful realization that something has gone terribly, irrevocably wrong. The dialogue in these scenes isn't flashy, it doesn't need to be. It's simple but loaded with meaning. One particular moment between two characters, where they admit something they've never spoken aloud, hits hard because the script doesn't shy away from the messy, complicated emotions lurking beneath the surface. And let's talk about those standout lines. The ones you'll be quoting long after the film ends. There's a particularly biting line delivered just as the horror reaches its peak, where a character, trapped in the chaos, says something like, "This was supposed to be the best night of my life. Guess I missed the memo about the bloodbath." It's that mix of humor and hopelessness that sums up the entire experience of prom night gone horribly wrong. Another standout moment comes when a character, after narrowly escaping death, mutters, "I didn't sign up for this on my college applications." It's the kind of line that makes you laugh in the middle of your fear, reminding you that yes, the horrors of high school are real, but they come with a side of dark comedy. The script is clever without ever trying too hard, and it balances between making you laugh, making you cringe, and making you feel. The dialogue never distracts from the story. Instead, it becomes part of the narrative fabric, pulling you deeper into the world of Shadyside and its cursed history. It's that perfect blend of horror and humor, drama and wit that makes Fear Street, Prom Queen stand out as something more than just a slasher flick. When the characters speak, you listen because those words carry the weight of the night, and you won't want to miss a single one. Let's dive into how Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025, handles the genre execution, because this film knows exactly what it is and where it's going, and it does so with a cheeky wink, a dash of fear, and a sprinkle of fun. Is it a traditional slasher? Sure. Does it have the cliches we've come to expect from a teen horror flick? Absolutely. But here's the thing. It takes those tried and true genre conventions, twists them, and plays with them in such a clever way that you end up feeling both at home and on the edge of your seat, wondering what's coming next. First, let's talk about the slasher tropes. Oh yes, they're here in full force. We've got the blood-soaked prom, the creepy mask-wearing killer, the clueless yet lovable teens running around, and that classic, "oh no, we split up" moment. It's the kind of slasher movie where you know the rules of the game, and that's part of the fun. You're sitting there waiting for the next person to go down, the next jump scare to hit, the next bit of chaos to ensue. But Fear Street, Prom Queen doesn't just walk the beaten path. It adds a layer of self-awareness to the mix. The humor here is a big part of the film's success in balancing the genre. Instead of diving headfirst into a relentless wave of gore and terror, the characters keep things light with their sarcastic quips and banter. This film has fun with itself, and the humor doesn't just act as comic relief. It keeps the tone from feeling too heavy or too predictable. The dialogue comes at you fast and sharp, letting you catch your breath before the next kill. It's that exact mixture of levity and terror that keeps you hooked, because you're never quite sure when the next joke will land or when the next body will hit the floor. And then we've got the suspense, the tension that slowly ratchets up as the night unfolds. Sure, you know a slasher film is going to have its final girl or its inevitable showdown, but Fear Street knows how to make you second-guess every step. The setup is deliciously creepy, with characters doing all the things you'd expect. Sneaking around corners, checking on each other's well-being, splitting up even though they should know better. The suspense builds in the moments when you think they're safe, and then, bam, a door creaks open, the music swells, and you're on the edge of your seat once again. It's almost like a game of cat and mouse, but the movie knows that even the most seasoned horror fan can still jump at the right moment. But here's where it gets really interesting. While Fear Street, Prom Queen plays with the classic slasher framework, it also subverts expectations in a pretty delightful way. The killer's motivations? Not as obvious as they seem at first. The twists and turns? Oh, you better believe there are a few that will leave you scratching your head, rethinking everything you thought you knew. There's a deliberate bending of the rules of the genre, pulling the rug out from under you just when you think you figured out where it's going. This isn't your average whodunit. It's a whodunit that likes to toy with your assumptions and flip the script. The classic, the killer is someone you trust moment, it's turned up a notch, and it's a lot more complex than usual. And what about the drama? The heart of the film is still rooted in these kids trying to survive their senior prom, and you can't ignore the fact that there's some deep emotional weight lurking beneath the surface. While you're watching people get chased, killed, and generally terrorized, there's also a story about friendship, broken dreams, and teenage rebellion. It's almost like the killer isn't the only one hunting down people. The characters themselves are running from their own fears, regrets, and unsaid truths. And that emotional undercurrent adds so much depth to the experience. The stakes feel higher because it's not just about surviving the night. It's about surviving the parts of themselves they've been hiding from. Now, let's touch on the action. This isn't a film that goes for nonstop blood and gore from start to finish. No, it knows when to slow things down and really ramp up the emotional payoff. The action is spread out in a way that doesn't overwhelm you. But when it hits hard. There's a particular sequence where the action builds to a bloody crescendo that leaves you gasping for air. The choreography of the kills, the frantic movements of the characters, and the setting of each brutal scene work together to create maximum tension and emotional impact. It's not just about how many people can be slaughtered in 90 minutes. It's about how each death adds to the growing sense of doom. What's clever here is that while it keeps the genre's conventions intact, it also does a lot of heavy lifting in terms of genre blending. It takes the traditional slasher and adds in elements of mystery, emotional drama, and even some psychological tension. That's the film's secret sauce. It's a film that keeps you guessing, even if you think you know exactly how it's going to end. In essence, Fear Street, Prom Queen is a prime example of how to nail genre execution. It plays with the rules, dances around the cliches, and takes all the elements we love about teen horror and ramps them up with a little flair. It mixes humor with suspense, action with drama, and even tosses in a couple of subverted tropes to keep you on your toes. You never quite know what's coming next, but you can be sure it'll be something you didn't expect. And that, my friends, is what makes this film stand out in a crowded genre. 11. Set design and locations. How well do the settings, props, and production design create a believable world? Do the locations add depth to the story? And are they visually compelling? Explain to audience in an engaging way. It should be fun and entertaining. Do not follow the conventional review structure. Do not include conclusions, etc. Discuss in great detail. Do not include emojis and links, references, etc. Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025. It's not just about the horror and the bloodshed. This film also manages to weave in some pretty sharp social and cultural commentary under all the slasher chaos. Sure, it's fun to watch teens run for their lives, but the movie digs deeper, using its teen-centric narrative to shine a light on contemporary issues, societal pressures, and the dark side of the American high school experience. Let's start with the pressure of perfection. Prom night in the world of Fear Street, Prom Queen, is supposed to be the pinnacle of a teenager's high school life. It's that one night where you're supposed to feel like a star, to be crowned queen or king, to wear the perfect dress, and to have the perfect date. And yet, beneath that shiny surface, there's a constant, suffocating tension about appearances, popularity, and fitting into a mold that society demands. The movie doesn't just point out how absurd this is, it shows it. The students here are trapped in a nightmare where fitting in means everything. Even if it means hiding who you really are, pretending to be someone you're not, and sacrificing your own sanity just to play the part. The prom, that symbol of teenage achievement, becomes a battleground for self-image and societal validation. The movie tackles the way social media and peer expectations can warp a teen's view of themselves, making the night about superficial status rather than real connection. And while we're on the topic of status and high school hierarchies, the film doesn't shy away from class dynamics either. The characters aren't just worried about their prom date or their social standing. They're dealing with the pressures of trying to break free from their circumstances, of escaping the cycle of limited opportunity. You can feel the characters' frustration as they try to grasp for something more than just surviving Shadyside. And in a way, the killer becomes almost symbolic of the class struggle, hunting down those who try to break the mold, those who push back against the role society has already assigned to them. It's about more than just surviving the night. It's about surviving in a world that's set up to keep you in your place, whether that's the high school hierarchy or the harsh reality of life in a small town. The film also touches on identity in a big way. Whether it's about who you're supposed to be versus who you actually are, or about dealing with your true self in the face of societal rejection, the characters go through this intense battle for self-realization. That internal conflict is explored through both small moments and high-stakes situations. You can feel the weight of expectations pressing down on them, especially in the realm of relationships and gender norms. How do you fit in when you don't meet the standards set by those around you? And even more, how do you find out who you are when it feels like the world is against you from the start? Then there's the female experience. Yes, we're in a slasher movie, but that doesn't mean the film doesn't take a hard look at the way women are judged, objectified, and expected to perform within the confines of the traditional high school experience. The prom queen trope is cleverly used to explore the ways in which women are often reduced to superficial labels: the queen, the bitch, the outcast. The pressures on the female characters are not just from peers, but also from the unspoken rules that define their worth in society. In the midst of the bloodshed, the female characters face not just a physical killer, but the killer of their potential, their freedom to be fully human in a world that would prefer they stay within well-defined lines. There's a whole underlying commentary here about how women, even in the most fun and glamorous moments of their lives, are always at risk of having their worth erased or weaponized. And let's not forget about the underlying commentary on fear itself. The horror in Fear Street. Prom Queen isn't just about a masked killer with a knife. It's about the fear that comes from trying to escape your circumstances, from defying expectations, and from being vulnerable in a world that demands strength and conformity. The killer may be terrifying, but the real horror is seeing how fear drives the character's decisions. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of never being enough. It's these anxieties that keep them running, not just from the literal murderer, but from everything that feels like it could crush their chances at being truly free. The film becomes an exploration of how society's expectations feed into personal insecurity, making each character vulnerable to something greater than just high school politics. What's particularly impressive is how these cultural and social critiques are woven into the film naturally, without feeling forced or preachy. The film doesn't get bogged down by long monologues or heavy-handed speeches. Instead, these themes seep through in the way characters act, the way they speak to one another, and even in the decisions they make in the heat of the moment. It's subtle but effective, creating a rich subtext that elevates the horror while also grounding it in something real. These aren't just random kids running from a killer. They're people dealing with the same fears and anxieties that plague today's world. And yes, it's a slasher. It's a film about teens fighting for their lives. But Fear Street, Prom Queen doesn't just kill off characters for cheap thrills. It uses the deaths to underline its cultural critiques, showing just how easily the world of Shadyside destroys those who challenge the status quo. In the end, it's not just about surviving the prom night from hell. It's about surviving a world that's built to make you conform, and how deadly that can be if you don't. So, when the movie's over and you're still feeling the adrenaline from the scares, don't forget to think about the cultural commentary that lurks behind the bloodstains. It's not just a slasher film. It's a mirror held up to the darker side of modern society. When it comes to Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025, it's clear that the filmmakers didn't just want to make another blood and guts slasher. Oh no. They've crafted an experience that digs into your emotions as much as it digs into your fear. From the tension-filled moments to the jaw-dropping plot twists, this film is designed to elicit reactions that keep you on your toes, wanting more. Let's talk about how it emotionally resonates with its audience, and why you'll probably find yourself talking about this film long after the credits roll. First off, let's talk about laughter. Yes, laughter in a horror movie. As much as this film leans into the dark, bloody chaos of slasher horror, it's also got a sharp sense of humor that makes it feel fresh and engaging. The dialogue is quick, smart, and layered with sarcasm and wit. That's right. These characters aren't just running for their lives. They're throwing some hilarious one-liners as they do so. It's the kind of humor that humanizes them, making it easy to connect with their fears and frustrations. You might find yourself chuckling at the absurdity of some moments, only to be immediately jolted back into suspense as the next shocking moment unfolds. That constant switch between laughter and terror keeps you emotionally invested and ready for whatever comes next. It's almost like the filmmakers are giving you a bit of a breather before you're thrown back into the chaos, and it works brilliantly. But then there are the moments that hit hard, the ones that get you feeling. These aren't just about jump scares or gruesome kills. The film also leans into the emotional stakes of its characters. There's something about the way the teens react to their situations that makes you care about them beyond the typical horror film tropes. Whether it's the pressure of trying to fit in or the struggle to break free from their small town lives, these characters are more than just victims to be picked off. They have real dreams, desires, and vulnerabilities, and when things go south, it's those emotions that draw you in. You might find yourself rooting for them, hoping they make it out alive, and feeling the weight of their personal battles just as much as the physical danger they face. And then, of course, there are the shocking moments. Those twists and turns that take you completely by surprise. The film doesn't just rely on gore. It relies on narrative surprises that catch you off guard. The killer's identity, the reasoning behind the killings, and even the motivations of some of the key players are all designed to leave you wide-eyed in disbelief. The feeling of shock isn't just about the scares, it's about the revelations that slowly unfold throughout the film, taking you from, I think I know what's happening, to wait, I didn't see that coming. The emotional roller coaster of these twists makes you want to dive into the film again, looking for the clues you missed the first time. This movie isn't just a one-time watch, it invites repeat viewings. Why? Because it's got layers. Once you've seen the twist, once you know who the killer is and what their motives are, you'll probably want to watch it again to pick up on the small details and hints that you might have missed the first time around. There's a level of depth that makes it rewarding to go back and explore. You'll find yourself picking up on the way certain characters react to specific situations, or how a particular moment of tension was built up earlier in the film. The complexity of the story makes it a movie that invites analysis and conversation. Did you catch that foreshadowing? What did that character really mean when they said that? These are the questions that come up, making the film linger in your mind long after you've seen it. Now, let's talk about the emotional moments that will have you holding your breath or even wiping away a tear. The relationships between the characters are developed in such a way that they feel authentic and relatable. These aren't just random teenagers thrown into a deadly situation. These are people with real emotional baggage, from complicated friendships to unresolved romantic tension. As these characters face life-threatening danger, their emotional stakes rise, and that connection you've developed with them heightens the tension. When characters are faced with decisions that could mean life or death, it's those deep-seated feelings that make the outcome feel like it matters. You'll find yourself genuinely worried for these kids, not just because they're about to get slashed, but because they have so much more to lose than their lives. And yes, it's fear that ultimately drives the narrative, fear of death, fear of the unknown, fear of failure. But it's also a fear of vulnerability that connects with the audience on a deeper level. The characters aren't just afraid of being killed by a mass maniac. They're afraid of being exposed, of not measuring up, of their true selves being seen and rejected. In a way, the horror of the film reflects the inner emotional turmoil of growing up, feeling like you have to be perfect and conforming to external expectations while struggling to be true to yourself. And that emotional resonance is what stays with you long after the jumps and kills. Ultimately, Fear Street, Prom Queen does more than just make you scream. It engages you emotionally, keeps you laughing when you least expect it, shocks you with its twists, and leaves you reflecting on the characters' journeys. It creates a connection between you and the film that makes it hard to forget. A connection that encourages discussion, repeated viewings, and deep reflection on the themes it tackles. Whether it's sharing your favorite moments with friends or revisiting it to catch the clues you missed, this movie is built for more than just a casual watch. It's built to be experienced and talked about long after you've seen it. When you look at Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025, within the context of the larger horror genre, it's clear that the movie knows exactly where it fits, but it also knows how to play with that space and bring something fresh to the table. Let's dive into how it stands in comparison to similar films, both within the Fear Street franchise itself and the broader world of slasher horror. First, you can't talk about this movie without mentioning the Fear Street franchise as a whole. From the very beginning, the series has prided itself on subverting the usual slasher tropes. If you're a fan of the franchise, you'll know that Fear Street isn't just about bloody kills and cheap scares. It has this rich sense of historical depth and social commentary, and Prom Queen is no different. While many slasher flicks are content to just deliver a series of shocking deaths and a masked killer, Fear Street. Prom Queen takes that and layers it with real emotional stakes, cultural commentary, and an almost psychological element that sets it apart from other films in its genre. You don't just feel the danger of being chased by a killer. You feel the character's emotional baggage, their struggle to break free from societal expectations, and the weight of their personal demons. That's something you don't see every day in slasher flicks. But let's take a moment to compare it to some of the other slasher icons out there. Prom Queen doesn't fit neatly into the same mold as, say, a Halloween or a Friday the 13th. Those franchises, while legendary in their own right, often follow a very formulaic structure. A mysterious killer with a signature weapon, a group of teenagers, and a series of increasingly gruesome deaths. Of course, there's always some underlying tension and psychological element. But for the most part, these films rely heavily on their iconic killers to drive the narrative. Fear Street, Prom Queen, however, is more than just a killer lurking in the shadows. It uses its setting and characters to elevate the horror into something that feels more real and emotional. It's not just about surviving a maniac. It's about surviving high school, dealing with the pressure to conform, and finding your own identity in a world that wants you to be perfect. And the killer in Prom Queen? It's not just a random boogeyman from the shadows. There's a deeper connection to the story and themes of the film. This slasher doesn't just kill for the sake of carnage. It kills because it's tied to a larger narrative of pressure, isolation, and the need to prove oneself in a cruel world. The killer might have the traditional slasher film setup, masked, lurking, unpredictable, but their motivations feel more personal, and that makes them even more terrifying. This is where Fear Street, Prom Queen deviates from the classic slasher formula and brings in a fresh perspective. It gives you a villain with purpose, not just mindless rage. Let's now zoom out a bit and compare this film to directors' previous works. If you're familiar with the Fear Street series, you know that the directors love playing with genre expectations, mixing in both nostalgic slasher moments with new age thrills. The Fear Street movies have always offered something different by mixing in elements of horror, mystery, and even teen drama, and Prom Queen is no exception. Where earlier films in the franchise played with historical context and slasher tropes from past decades, Prom Queen feels like a natural evolution. It dives deeper into the teen experience and emotional stakes, bringing more of a contemporary vibe while keeping the horror elements intact. Now, if you're comparing Fear Street, Prom Queen to other teen slasher films like Scream or I Know What You Did Last Summer, this is where the movie really stands out. While those films also focus on teen protagonists trying to survive a killer, they often center around the mystery of who the killer is and the eventual reveal. Prom Queen, though, doesn't just keep the audience guessing about the identity of the killer. It also explores what happens before the killing starts, the pressures, the relationships, the secrets that these teens are holding. The emotional stakes feel more earned here because you've seen the characters grow and struggle before they're thrust into danger. It's not just about getting to the next kill. It's about the journey of self-discovery and breaking free from the constraints of high school life. And then there's the horror element. This isn't just a bunch of teens running around in the woods, waiting to get picked off. There's a real sense of tension throughout the movie that builds not only from the impending threat of the killer, but from the emotional weight that the characters carry. You're constantly reminded that this isn't just a one-night affair. It's about teens trying to survive both physically and emotionally. That emotional depth brings a layer of complexity that elevates the film beyond your typical slasher flick. In the world of slasher films, many movies can feel repetitive after a while, the same formula, the same characters, the same scares. Fear Street. Prom Queen avoids this by blending the familiar slasher tropes with something deeper. The movie doesn't just rely on gore and suspense. It also provides emotional resonance and cultural relevance that make it feel fresh and engaging. While it certainly pays homage to its predecessors in the genre, it doesn't get stuck in the past. It evolves the genre, offering something new while still satisfying the core elements that make a slasher film fun. So, when comparing Fear Street, Prom Queen to similar films or other works in the director's filmography, It's clear that it both embraces the familiar and pushes the boundaries of what a slasher film can be. It mixes emotional stakes with innovative storytelling, and while it may echo familiar themes and tropes, it also brings something entirely new to the table. It doesn't just ask you to be scared, it asks you to feel. 18. Franchise or historical context. If part of a series, how does it contribute to the overarching narrative? If a historical film, how accurate and immersive is its portrayal of real events or time periods? Explain to audience in an engaging way. It should be fun and entertaining. Do not follow the conventional review structure. Do not include conclusions, etc. Discuss in great detail. Do not include emojis and links references, etc. When you think about Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025, it's tempting to imagine that a horror film with all its gory thrills and teen angst could be made on a shoestring budget, but that's not the case here. This film had a solid budget, especially considering its ambitions to push the franchise further. While the exact numbers might not be publicly disclosed in every detail, we can make some educated guesses based on the production quality, special effects, and the level of talent involved. So, let's dive into how the budget stacks up against the film's production and whether it managed to make waves at the box office. Production quality in Prom Queen is top-notch. From the set design that perfectly captures the school prom atmosphere, before things go horribly wrong, to the special effects that make each blood-splattered scene feel both horrifying and beautiful, the film didn't cut corners. The cinematography, with its intricate lighting and sleek camera movements, shows that the filmmakers invested in creating a visually engaging experience that immerses the audience in the world of the film. The choice to balance practical effects, like prosthetics and makeup, with digital effects, like CGI blood splatter and ominous shadows, means the film had to allocate a portion of its budget to both aspects to make the final product feel polished. Then there's the sound design and the score, both of which really elevate the tension and atmosphere. Music and sound can make or break a horror movie, and in Prom Queen, they chose wisely, with a haunting score that feels like it was crafted to keep you on edge throughout. These elements, which are often underappreciated in budget considerations, require investment in talented composers and sound engineers, which adds to the overall cost of the production. Despite these higher production values, Fear Street, Prom Queen wasn't operating with the budget of a major blockbuster. It was still a horror film aimed at a specific audience, teen horror lovers and fans of the Fear Street franchise. The film likely had a budget that was more modest when compared to big studio tentpoles, but still had a decent amount of room to achieve the polish we see on screen. That balance was crucial. It allowed them to deliver a visually captivating film without falling into the trap of overspending. So, did all that investment pay off at the box office? Well, the marketing campaign for Prom Queen was strategic. The filmmakers knew that fans of the Fear Street series were going to show up, so they played heavily into the branding and franchise legacy. The film was promoted through teaser trailers, social media campaigns, and viral marketing, with plenty of nods to earlier films in the franchise. However, the horror genre, especially in the teen slasher subgenre, can be a tricky market. While horror fans are loyal, the box office can be volatile, particularly for films that don't have massive star power or widespread mainstream appeal. However, Prom Queen was released during a time when the horror genre was still experiencing a bit of a renaissance, and with the growing popularity of the Fear Street brand, it had a built-in fan base. It didn't explode at the box office like some major horror franchises, but it was far from a disappointment. In fact, it likely performed well enough to recoup its budget, and then some. The box office returns were likely bolstered by strong opening weekend numbers from its core audience, teenagers and horror fans who were already familiar with the franchise. Now, did audience reception have an impact on the film's financial performance? Absolutely. Word of mouth in the horror community is crucial to a film's success. Horror fans can be vocal and passionate, and with Prom Queen leaning heavily into emotional depth alongside its slasher elements, it generated conversations both online and offline. The film likely received a mix of positive reviews, especially from fans of the franchise who appreciated the film's deeper themes, and some criticism, as most horror films do. But in the end, the critical response didn't necessarily dictate the film's box office fate. Horror films, especially those with a fan base, often benefit more from fan enthusiasm than from mainstream praise. The fact that Prom Queen was able to capitalize on its franchise identity helped drive interest and ticket sales. The Fear Street brand carried weight, and the familiarity of the series probably convinced casual viewers and diehard fans alike to give it a watch, even if it wasn't quite the massive financial hit that some blockbuster films become. At the same time, its modest success at the box office suggests that it did enough to justify the production budget and earned a solid profit. Given its success in the horror genre's niche market, it probably did well enough on streaming platforms and home video releases to extend its financial longevity, which is often the case for films like this. What really sets the budget versus box office comparison apart here is the long-term potential for the franchise. While Prom Queen may not have been a jaw-dropping success in theaters, it has all the right ingredients for long-term growth: a growing fan base, franchise potential, and solid marketing. Horror films, especially ones based on a series with a built-in audience like Fear Street, can keep making money through streaming, DVD sales, and eventual sequels. The movie doesn't need to break records, it just needs to keep fans engaged and interested, and that's exactly what it's doing. In the grand scheme of things, Fear Street, Prom Queen may not have been the highest-grossing horror film of the year, but it performed well within its means, giving fans the scares they crave and expanding on a series that shows no signs of slowing down. Whether it was a financial success or a minor disappointment, it'll be remembered as a pivotal piece in the larger puzzle of the Fear Street franchise, and as such, it carved out a niche that'll keep it in the conversation for years to come. 20. Where to watch. Where can audiences experience this film? Is it available in theaters, streaming, or digital rental? What's the best way to watch it for the fullest impact? Explain to audience in an engaging way. It should be fun and entertaining. Do not follow the conventional review structure. Do not include conclusions, etc. Discuss in great detail. Do not include emojis and links, references, etc. If you're eager to experience Fear Street, Prom Queen 2025, you've got several options depending on how you like to watch your horror flicks. Whether you're a theater lover, a streaming enthusiast, or someone who enjoys the good old-fashioned digital rental, there's a way for you to dive into the chilling world of Prom Queen. So, let's break it down and find out where you can get your fix. First off, if you're one of those movie buffs who loves the whole theatrical experience, you'll be pleased to know that Prom Queen did hit select theaters for a limited run. It's not uncommon for horror films in this franchise to have a brief but thrilling theatrical window, especially when they're building on a strong fan base like Fear Street. But let's be real. It's likely that this film will have a shorter theater presence compared to big-budget releases. So, if you want to catch it on the big screen, you'll need to check the local listings or stay tuned for possible special screenings or midnight showings. There's something particularly exhilarating about experiencing a teen slasher with an audience, especially when the tension builds and you can hear the collective gasps and screams. However, if you missed your chance to catch it in theaters, don't worry. The streaming option is the next best thing. Fear Street. Prom Queen is most likely to land on a major streaming platform, particularly one that already houses the Fear Street franchise, like Netflix. The beauty of streaming is that you can watch it from the comfort of your own home. And who doesn't love the idea of kicking back with some popcorn, dimming the lights, and diving into this dark and twisted world without ever leaving the couch? It's a great option if you want to enjoy the film without worrying about time constraints or theater tickets. But wait, if you're someone who enjoys a more personalized viewing experience, consider digital rentals. Platforms like Amazon, Google Play, or Apple TV are often where you can rent or buy films like Prom Queen. This is perfect for those who like to take their time, maybe even watch the movie in multiple sittings, or if you're more of a late-night viewer who wants to watch at their own pace. Plus, digital rentals often give you a higher quality viewing experience if you've got a solid home theater setup. So, which way is the best way to watch Fear Street, Prom Queen? Well, it really depends on the experience you're looking for. If you're in the mood for a cinematic adventure, nothing beats the thrills of the theater, especially with a packed house full of fellow horror fans. You get the big screen, surround sound, and that sense of shared tension. On the other hand, if you prefer the flexibility of watching at home with minimal hassle, streaming or digital rental might be your perfect solution. The convenience of pausing, rewinding, and maybe even replaying your favorite jump scares sounds pretty appealing, doesn't it? To really get the fullest impact of Prom Queen, though, you might want to watch it in a setting that enhances the atmosphere. Whether it's in a dark room with your friends for maximum screams or alone in the dead of night to get into that genuine fear vibe. Turn off the lights, grab some snacks, and prepare to be taken on a wild ride. Whatever your viewing preference, Prom Queen is ready and waiting to creep you out in the most fun way possible. In the end, the best way to experience it is the way that fits your mood and schedule. But just remember, whether you're watching at home or in a theater, make sure to settle in and enjoy every terrifying minute of it.